So I recently was watching Fox News and I saw Tommy Sotomayor as a guest host or whatever. I guess I don't know what they would call it, but either way, Tommy was asked a question as to why so many black men are now supporting Donald Trump, and his response was something to the akin of black men are now able to support Donald Trump openly because there are more black women who support Donald Trump. And black men are afraid of black women, but now that there are more black women supporting Donald Trump, black men are afraid to, black men are no longer afraid to publicly voice their opinion. Now, I disagree with Mr. Sotomayor on that. I think that there are some men who follow the lead of black women, but I believe that over the past decade or so, there's been a significant change in the perspective and relationship that exists between black men and black women. I think that black men no longer have the reverence and high opinion of black women, largely because of their public displays, their behavior. What we call the war of the sexes has definitely caused some serious division between black men and black women. And we just don't have the caliber of black women around that we see as respectable in large part. I did a broadcast about 5 or 6 years ago called Big Mama is Dead. And what I meant by that, or what I attempted to demonstrate in that broadcast was that, you know, black women just don't hold black women in high regard anymore. There was a time when we had those matriarchal women. Many of them had been raised in the South. They cooked, they cleaned, they stood by their husbands, they raised their grandchildren when the mothers and fathers weren't available. And, you know, there was a generation or generations of black men who grew up loving those women. And out of respect and admiration for those women, you know, well, I should say the respect and admiration that we have for those women was transposed upon black women in general. But now we realize that, as I said, Big Mama is dead, and we don't have that sort of black woman anymore. We don't have those sort of dedicated black women who are respectful, who go to church, who are loyal to the community, who, irrespective of their financial ability, always carry themselves with a certain degree of pride and practice restraint. Someone that we looked up to and who we revered, who we would accept correction from. We don't really have those women like that anymore. And the black women, that modern woman that we have now, we just don't hold them in that high regard. So we would not necessarily follow their political lead. More important, because we don't hold them in such high regard, we don't really care what they think. You have to have a certain level of reverence and respect for a person to not want to disappoint them. And if you're dealing with a woman that, you know, you find in some regards reprehensible, at least as far as their behavior, you really don't care what they think. So it's not necessarily fear, which is why black men are now voting for Trump. It's because we find it to be in our own self-interest to vote for Donald Trump. I think that, like most men in America, white men, Hispanic men, black men, benefit from policies by the conservative side of the American political spectrum. The protectionism, the entrepreneurship, the low taxes, the strong on defense, those sort of things benefit all men. I just think for years, black men put their own self-interest last. We would always try to align ourselves with black women, even though black women predominantly voted Democratic, so we voted Democratic. More importantly, we don't reap the benefits. We don't reap the benefits of the Democratic Party. We never have those socialist programs like welfare, EBT cards, food stamps, Section 8. Those are not really, matter of fact, those are not really policies that we benefit from. As a matter of fact, many of those programs exclude black men for the purpose of making sure we don't benefit. Matter of fact, there was a time if you had a black man living in your house, you wouldn't be eligible for things like welfare. And so they purposely excluded us, and that in a large part was a big reason why black men and black women found themselves separated. The black woman chose what the government could provide in the form of these subsidies and social programs, as opposed to trying to do the best she could, working with the black man and working themselves out of poverty together. But with the government, she can get their money and still have say-so and 100% control over her home and her children. With a black man, she would actually have to share authority. So, now brothers are like, well, that being the case, there's really no incentive for me to vote Democratic. We're looking at America and looking at how far behind we're falling. And we're saying, well, let's go ahead and vote with the policies that benefit us. And so that's kind of what you see black men doing. Black men are voting their interests, and black women are voting their interests. And as I said before, if your interests are aligned with one party or another, and those happen to be different parties, so be it. But I don't think it's fear. I don't think it's fear at all. Matter of fact, black women will tell you that their interests don't align with black men. There was a broadcast that came on Fox Soul maybe about 4 or 5 years ago with Ice Cube, the rapper, also known as O'Shea Jackson of NWA fame, was there with several other middle-aged to older female entertainers, and he brought up the question. This was actually back in 2020. He proposed the idea that he was proposing a contract for Black America. And the women were adamant about the fact that they wanted a separate and distinct designation for what benefits black women. And then when Ice Cube said, well, these policies benefit black people, and those black women specifically said, yeah, but what benefits black people doesn't necessarily benefit black women. That in itself signified the fact that black women acknowledge that their political needs differ from those of black people in general and black men specific. And therefore, we got to conclude that the inverse is also true, that what benefits black people in general does not benefit black men. So, as I look at this situation, and I assess what Mr. Sotomayor says, and he's a very prominent speaker, well known throughout the African-American world, I believe. At least I'm familiar with him. I've been familiar with him a lot of time. He has a lot of very harsh critiques about African-American behavior, degenerate behavior specifically. And we can't fault him for that. Some people used to find what he had to say inappropriate or overly harsh. But the truth is, he was simply just reciting and demonstrating news articles and news broadcasts showing, showcasing the behavior that we saw rising 10, 15 years ago. And now you see it's all come to a head. But irrespective of how you feel about the man, he has definitely brought attention to the degenerate behavior that is exhibited in the black community. That said, on this issue, he's definitely wrong. It's not that we're afraid of black women. It's not that we have been afraid of black women. It's just we don't care anymore. We just don't care. We realize that many black women really don't care about us. They don't care about black people in general. They're really focused on themselves. And once you realize a person, how many times does a person have to tell you, I don't care about you. I'm going to put my needs first. And at some point, you just foolish if you continue putting your needs uh, after theirs, and they're putting their needs first. That means you just end up with nothing. Especially considering that black men, contribute significantly to this country through our taxes, through our military service, through our civil service, through our political advocacy, through our uh, so much input that we put in. So we have a right to vote for our interests. So I would disagree with Mr. Sotomayor on that. Some of you may disagree with me, but yeah, we're not afraid of black women. We let them be in charge because we didn't want to argue with them. We let them be in charge. We let them say the things they wanted to say because we love them. But see, now at this point, that love is waning. The tolerance that we had for them is is disappearing. You know, black men know that black women can be obstinate. Black men know that black women are extremely difficult. It's just that out of love and admiration and respect and reverence that we had for that archetypical, or should that black woman archetype, that so-called Medea, Big Mama archetype, that we let them slide. But at this point, it's like, oh well, y'all don't really care about us. We don't care about you either. And so that's what you see happening. That's why you see black men basically saying, yeah, man, I'm voting for this guy. I'm voting for this Trump guy because it serves my interests. I really don't care what the rest of y'all think. You can't shame us or guilt us or make us feel bad, because see, that only works with somebody I care about. I don't care what somebody who doesn't care about me thinks about what I'm doing. And that's what you see happening right now. It's not fear. It's just the brothers just don't care anymore. And that apathy is serious. That apathy is when you have one group of people, or should I say, a group of people, and the sexes are divided in one group, and the males or females become apathetic towards the other side. It's over. It's pretty much over. There's an old saying that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. And now what you have is indifference. You have black men who are indifferent to the well-being and to the needs of black women. And that, in some regards, spells it spells defeat. It spells this is the end, because if you got people in the house, they don't care about each other, guess what? That's over. A house divided will not stand. But in this particular case, you just got somebody who just doesn't care whether you starve or whether you die, whatever. I tell brothers all the time, using my online persona, the Blizzard King, are you willing to turn the cold shoulder and step over the proverbial bodies in the street? What I mean by that is, and many men have responded, yes, we are. But what I mean by that is, are you prepared to see black women with the highest eviction rate? Are you prepared to see them homeless? Are you prepared to see them incarcerated at a higher degree than even black men? And are you literally prepared to see them and the children that they give birth to, especially those who they decide to have with men who are either unavailable or not there? Are you prepared to see them suffer and starve? And many men have expressed indifference to their suffering. So what does that mean? That means that we're in a different world now. And these political changes are secondary to the social changes that have been brewing over the past 15 years. Let me say that again, because this is very important. Online, they have developed something called the black manosphere, the manosphere in general. And for maybe the past 15 or 20 years, you've heard terms like red pill, blue pill, purple pill, and so on and so forth. That had a lot to do with relationships. That had a lot to do with social relationships and interactions. And what you see is black men slowly, but certainly and in a deliberate manner, forming opinions about modern relationships with black women, which is cause for them to either, number one, not get married, not have children, number two, and also give up hope. And it's given rise to movements like the Passport Bros. There's a reason why 51% of black men don't have children and aren't married. There's another reason why only 31% of black men are married, and of that 31%, a quarter of those men are married to women outside of who don't have any African heritage. And these stats are probably old. I'm sure it's increasing. There's been some new stats have come up, but that was as of, the late 2020s. So now we're looking at a situation where brothers aren't getting married to black American women. They aren't having children. And now with the onset of this cultural shift and this third option, the Passport Bros, you're going to see more and more black men just totally separating themselves from what used to be the black community and black culture being diluted. And then you got couple that with the fact that 1.5 million, let me say that again, 1.5 million children have been born to black women who were not sired by black men. So what that means is out of the 8 million black children born over the past, decade or so, black women decided to allow men of other races impregnate them to the tune of 1,500,000. So now you got a bunch of biracial children in the black community, which black men are going to look at and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I could see myself helping to take care of another black man's baby, but I am certainly not going to tie myself financially, socially, emotionally to a woman and a child, or to a woman who gave birth to a child and that child of a white man or a Hispanic man or Asian man or Arab man. Just not going to do it. Enough is enough. I mean, think about that. And you want to know why black men are indifferent? You want to know why black men are saying, hey, it's time for us to do what's in our best interest? Just think about that. You got black women who've had 1.5 million children walking and running around the black community by men who aren't even black. So your baby daddy is a Mexican. Your baby daddy is a white man. What does that say about you? And now you think the black men in the black community is supposed to help you take care of those children? As they say colloquially, where they do that at? Absolutely not. And at some point, black men, everybody's going to draw a line and say that's it. And that's pretty much it, And so the other issue that you have, and the reason that black men have given up, is because, unfortunately, you just can't tell black women anything. Any critiques, any criticism, whether it be about their weight, which has a lot to do with their health issues, whether it be about their sexual habits, whether it has to do with hygiene, or even if brothers express what they like and what they don't like in physical features, preferences, the sisters call it bashing. It's all bashing. On the flip side, you can critique a man in general, and black men specifically, from the top of their head to the bottom of their toes, and you can pull apart and critique every aspect of this man's life. You can call him all these different names, and we're just supposed to accept it, which we do largely. But the minute you tell a black woman, hey, you know what? I don't want to date you, or I don't want a woman who's obese. Oh my God, you're bashing. You're fat shaming. You express the fact that you may like a woman who is a light skin or lighter skinned woman. Oh my God, you're a colorist. And my thing is this: if you didn't want to have men express their preferences about their color preferences or whatever, You don't like light-skinned people, stop having them. You know what I'm saying, ladies? I mean, it's your choice. You got 1.5 million light-skinned babies running around by these men of other ethnicities. So, you know, if you don't like them, stop having them. But bottom line is black women are allowed to express their preferences. They're physically and what they like in a man. They're allowed to critique men. And, you know, they're allowed to talk bad about us for our political decisions. But we can't say anything to them, or otherwise it's considered bashing. And at a certain point, a person's just going to, like, you know what, they just going to cut off the conversation and say, whatever you have to say is irrelevant. I don't really care what you have to say anymore, because you can dish it, but you can't take it. So if we can't have a conversation, I'm too old for a lecture, let's just not even talk. And I'll do what's in my best interest, and you do what's in your best interest. That's kind of like human nature. That's what you see happening. That is afoot. So again, as I hark back to what I was originally, my original point of this video, or this conversation, this one-way conversation, I don't think Mr. Sotomayor was accurate when he said that it is fear which is now causing for black men to speak up. It's the fact that they just don't care anymore. They just don't care what black women think. It's not that they fear black women, they just don't care. And they're voting their interest. For instance, if black men truly have always wanted to vote for Donald Trump or the Republican Party, and they simply feared the shame, insults, and guilt that they would receive from black women if they openly stated that they voted for the Republican Party, then they would just do it anyway, and just not say anything about it. So this is more than just fear, because there's a lot of stuff that black men do that they don't say about it, like, you know, have some other women on the side. They still do it. They're afraid of getting caught because they don't want that chastisement, but they still do it. So same thing. They would vote. They would go in that booth, vote Republican, and not say anything about it. And if they get caught, maybe deny it. So that's not the issue. I think the brothers just don't care anymore. They just don't care. They don't care what black women think. And so because of that, you see this result. You see this overwhelming result of black men voting Republican, specifically for Donald Trump. And I don't think we've seen, I think it's only going, I think this political shift, like the social relationship shift that started on the internet and has been going on for the past 15 some odd years, I think now you see the political shift. You see men now saying, well, hey, let's just vote our interests. I'm going to vote my interests. And we all came to this decision collectively, you know, under our own individual terms. There's no leader. There's no body specifically pushing this. We just realized that this is in my best interest. I'm going to do what's in my best interest, and now you see it happening. But